It is Saturday, February 1st. We are in traffic, as usual, and getting ready to head to church to meet up with our other teachers. A total of 7 of us today are heading to be trained for the Discipleship Manual and the entire OCC project. We'll take you on the adventure of the training that we go through today from about 7:38 a.m. to 3:30 p.m.
Y esta parte de nuestra guía ministerial nos ayuda a conocer cómo realizar un evento evangelístico y cómo realizar las lecciones de LGA.
Miles de kilómetros. En el puerto, las cajas de regalos continúan la aventura por tierra. Algunos por carreteras y otros por senderos.
Nuestra misión consta de 5 componentes. Y el primero es demostrar el amor de Dios de una manera tangible. ¿De qué manera demostramos el amor de Dios de una manera tangible? A través de la oportunidad evangelística. A través de este proyecto, Samaritan Bus trabaja junto con la iglesia local, es decir, con cada uno de ustedes, con el fin de compartir las buenas nuevas de Jesucristo y hacer discípulos en todas las naciones.
No en los hijos de los hermanos que llevan 10 años asistiendo a la iglesia, porque ese trabajo ya lo están haciendo ustedes, mis hermanos maestros de escuela dominical. Es a quienes no han conocido el Evangelio. Sí, ahora vamos a ver cuántas veces tiene derecho.
De a un niño un regalo más uno de
Listo, ahí les voy a responder la pregunta que hice antes. ¿Pueden participar los niños de la congregación? ¿Cuántas veces? Bien, para evangelizar a los niños. Cada cajita entonces está diseñada para que le contemos al niño acerca de Jesús, le mostremos el plan de salvación. Y esa caja no puede ser dividida. No es que ahí llegó la cajita y esto pesa mucho, yo creo que esto alcanza para 2 niños. No, esa cinta que sella esa caja es irrompible por ustedes. ¿Quién es el único que la puede romper? El niño que recibe. Entonces, cada niño que asiste al evento evangelístico debe ser invitado a iniciar un programa de discipulado que se llama La Gran Aventura, que dura 3 meses y que se inicia 8 días después de que se termina el evento evangelístico. Ok, el cuarto principio es el principio de la buena mayordomía de los recursos que Dios nos ha entregado.
During this event, they also taught us how to plan and prepare for the evangelism event. The first thing they talked about was prayer. They talked about the importance of how this is the main necessity. Before, during, after the evangelism event, we need to be praying. They also took time to talk about which kids are we going to invite, to be thinking about and praying over those kids before they come to the evangelism event, but to make sure that we were talking as a group and deciding which kids we're going to invite to this event. They also talked specifically about the invitation that we're going to make. They wanted us to be thinking through how we're going to invite the kids and planning to print an invitation to invite them. They focused a lot on the logistics of the event, talking about spaces, how many kids our space is able to hold, how to think through the logistics of snack, numbers, personnel, just everything we need to make the event possible. And then also about the actual space for the event. So where are we going to put the boxes? Where are we going to have the chairs and the volunteers and the parents? And they actually have a diagram for us that talked through the best way to set up an event, to have the parents at the back, to have kids separated by age group, to have a teacher at the side of each line so that the kids are kind of watched over and have some form of adult presence by them at all times. They talked about having the teachers up at the front and whoever is going to present the gospel in the center, and then to have the boxes ready but hidden. So during the event, the boxes are supposed to be hidden somewhere. And then they also went over all of the materials, the things that they are going to give us so that we can be successful at the evangelism event. There's going to be a poster to teach the gospel. You've got the boxes. Our church will get 210 boxes. And then you also have the Greatest Journey discipleship books. So we are going to get those for the kids. And we also need to have an invitation to hand out to all of the kids that get a shoebox so that we can invite them to the Greatest Journey discipleship class.
Por favor, niños y niñas de 5 a 9, ubíquense por favor donde está su grupo, dentro de su grupo, porque tienen que estar pendientes de ellos. ¿Los niños? ¿Ellos como que no vinieron de dónde están las niñas? Ok, muy bien, entonces a partir de este momento, niños y niñas, vamos a dar inicio con esto. Una mujer así como a ti y como a mí, Dios todo lo hizo bueno.
Each teacher's manual also has a page that shows us how to tell the story of the gospel using their flip book. So it's got a 2-page sheet that we can use to guide us through the flip book gospel presentation. Once we looked through it and read over it, they then gave us time in groups to practice telling the story of the gospel using the images provided to us.
Lo ideal es que ustedes se lo aprendan de memoria, lo ideal, porque ustedes a veces, por eso yo lo leo aquí en esta versión para que ustedes lo lean, pero si de pronto se les llega a olvidar, por eso ustedes están con la cartilla de esta manera. Celebración y reporte. Pero vamos a hacer énfasis en 3 puntos específicos que están aquí atrás. ¿Que son cuáles?
The next session of the training was one of the longer and more in-depth sessions. In the morning, we learned about how to set up the evangelism event and invite and actually go through the evangelism event. But then the afternoon was spent learning how to use the discipleship material. This material we'll be using for 12 weeks to disciple the kids who receive shoeboxes. So they taught us how to use our teacher's manual and then also how to use the kids' discipleship booklets. During that, they went through the breakdown of the lessons. The first 6 lessons, the first 6 weeks of discipleship are about knowing the gospel. The next 3 weeks are about growing in the gospel. And then the final 3 weeks are about sharing the gospel. It was also cool. They talked a lot about the usefulness of the resources and the best way to utilize them. They talked about how kids under the age of 5 don't really know how to read and write. So the discipleship booklets aren't necessarily geared towards the youngest kids. They recommended that we use the booklets of the greatest gift, and inside there are 12 lessons. And so to use those 12 lessons as like an oral presentation for the 2 to 5-year-olds, and then for 6 and above to use the 12 weeks of discipleship in the greatest journey booklets. So it was interesting to see how they recommended using the resources.
Hacer preguntas.
The final step of our training was learning about reporting. They talked about the importance of sharing testimonies and the importance of getting these reports turned in so that they have communication with the senders and they have records for the entire year as a project in general. And so they taught us how to use our teacher's manuals, which have an attendance sheet for the discipleship program. But then they also showed us the actual reporting page that we will turn in. And this is actually my job. I am our coordinator, and so I get to turn in all of our numbers, all of our reports for how many kids attend our evangelism events, all of the classes that we do for the greatest journey. And so all of our numbers have to be recorded and turned in. We also need to tell them how many kids graduate. It's just a good way to show them how many kids were in the project from the start to the end, and just give a little bit of a count to how we use the resources that we were given this year. So we ended the sessions by learning how to turn in our reports at the end of this project.